Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to our very first ViVA Online Breakout Session of the year, 2026. Delighted to have so many people. We had, I think, the last time I looked, were 120, 121 people signed up, which was lovely. So obviously you either want to hear from Ellen and Hannah, and you love the topic of mind-body connection. And either way, it's all good because we're all here together to enjoy that. So just to clarify for anybody who may not know, my business partner at ViVA for 11 years, Sue Pankowicz, or Sue Coltman, as she was later known as, has taken a step back. And I have a new business partner for ViVA 2026, who is the lovely Claire Downham here with me. So we're co-facilitating and co-creating ViVA 2026 together this year, which is very exciting. It'll be the same basic principles, to use that word, and of course different energy, different flavor. So we'll see how it turns out this year. Very exciting. And she said, "Did Claire? I'll let you introduce and do all the stuff this year because I'm kind of don't know yet." Yeah, like she doesn't know, right? But I thought, so first of all, I thought I'd break my wrist just to get us going on the mind-body connection. So that was 10 days ago I decided to do that. Ha ha, silly accident. But yeah, very timely. So I'm looking forward to hearing what Hannah and Ellen have to share with us today. So just very, very briefly, I've known Ellen and Hannah for quite a few years now. I don't actually remember how many years, but many years each of them. And they both have very powerful, impactful stories on the topic in the realm of the mind-body connection. Hannah has published 4 books now, all on that topic. Ellen, have you published a book? I cannot remember. Not yet. I'm going to say not yet. But I've met Ellen in Zoom rooms over the years, and she's been sharing on the topic of health and the mind-body connection for a long time. They both work as coaches, facilitators, and I'm hoping that they will share a little bit of their stories because I think it's very powerful to hear about the turnarounds and the insights that they've had because they're very impactful. So I'm going to, without further ado, so just to say the format of today will be they are probably going to speak for maybe half an hour share between them, and then we'll open it up for sharings, insights, questions for the final half an hour. That's roughly what we do at ViVA actually in our breakout sessions. We're running it pretty much as we do those. So I'm going to hand over to Ellen to begin with.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. The only thing that's missing is for me is the sea, in Albert, where we last were together. So, for those of you who don't know me, it's nice to be here with you. And for those that do, I wanted, in case you didn't see what happened when I was in ViVA, I had like a complete embodiment of something that I've known to be true for decades. Um, I was a physical therapist for over 30 years and worked mind body before I knew what I was doing as a mind body physical therapist, and witnessed so many people shift their physical health, especially people with chronic neurologic conditions, with simple physical therapy relaxation techniques. So I taught them. I thought I knew them. I thought I was doing them with people. I thought, I didn't realize how much stress and tension and worry that I carried. And I was really masterful about comparing my level of stress with my friend's level of stress, who was way more intense than mine. I was really good at minimizing my own awareness of my anxiety, even though I was on medication for anxiety. I was really good at ignoring everything that was there. And while I was at ViVA, I was sharing my story of my health conditions, and I was like I found myself as my own deer in the headlights in like feeling the experience of, oh my gosh, all that stress and worry. No wonder there were not one or two, but three autoimmune conditions, and then, a cancer diagnosis to wake me up to what I was innocently continuing to do with myself, even though I had this understanding for many years before the cancer diagnosis. Um, that search, that hunt to feel better, like I was doing that for decades, hunting to feel better in any and every way. And I see how that was just activating my sympathetic nervous system and just keeping me in this low level of familiar flight, fight, flight, freeze. Um, and my journey through that was very gradual and slow. And as I say to Hannah, we have between the two of us, I think we've covered just about every human disorder, disease, label, diagnosis that two people can have. And our healing experience was very, very different. Mine was very slow and gradual, and had its own journey. And if nothing else, I just want to point us all to that. Like we each have our own journeys to discovering what our path is for our healing from the inside out. And I want to welcome, questions in the chat because I don't know that we need to speak for a long time. We really want this to be I prefer the interactive discussion too, and we want to know like what's on your heart, what's on your mind, what do you want to see new, fresh, different, or share your experience. Um, and this morning it came into my awareness, like, Ellen, of course you knew the mind-body connection. Like you witnessed it, and you've witnessed it in thousands of people. You've supported people with that. But that moment in ViVA, I the knowing changed to, as Sid says, knowing. Like I had the full experience in my mind, body, soul of knowing the impact of stress. And I have, in the last couple of years, have a very low tolerance for stress and anxiety, which was opposite. I thought having a high tolerance was the way to get through life, and it was the way I got through life. But having a super low tolerance, sometimes I say I'm allergic to stress, worry, and upset, so that I wake myself up to it and I let it move through. So I'll pause there.
Hmm. Thank you, Ellen. So it's so funny. When I woke up this morning, I was thinking about, what we were going to talk about. And up until when you started speaking, I was like, I don't know. But you just said, like, I knew as soon as you started talking, my mind would like start, firing with some ideas and thoughts to share. And one of them is, I think you kind of hinted at this. I had a similar experience. I didn't realize just how anxious I was
Mm.
until I'd been around the three principles for a couple of years, I think. When I was around the principles for probably about the 2 or 3 year mark. And the whole of that year, I started having, I won't call them flashbacks because that sounds too dramatic, but just memories of situations where I was so up in my head
Mm.
that I wanted to run home. So uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. And I never saw that as anxiety. I just knew I was right. You know, the music's too loud. This isn't somewhere I want to be. These people are annoying. They're doing it wrong. And so I didn't see that as anxiety. I just saw that as, you know, this is not a situation I want to be in, so I need to go home. And what I see now is my body was screaming at me to get out of my head and be more present.
Mm.
Only I didn't know that's what was happening because I'd been through a lot of violence in my early 20s. I had a lot of injuries. And so whenever I talked to anybody medical, they would attribute my physical issues and symptoms and syndromes to these injuries or to something that was going wrong in my body. So whether it was the back pain and the neck pain was coming from the injuries. I used to wake up with my arm numb sometimes, and they'd say, "Oh, well, that's because the nerve for your arm comes out of your neck where your neck was broken." And then I had allergies, I had cystitis, I had IBS, eczema, asthma. Like you said, we've both got these long list of things. And and there was always a medical reason for it. So I never made that connection with my state of mind and what was happening in my body until it went away. Because I didn't know my pain could go away. A lot of the people I work with now, they've been on a journey of trying to fix their body, change how they feel, get rid of the pain. I didn't have that experience because I just thought I had to put up with it. I just thought it was something, it was like the deck of cards I'd been dealt, between the injuries and the allergies and stuff. It was just like I just had to put up with it. And so my journey had always been about coping and making the best of it. Going to the chiropractor, homeopathy, injections, all these different things, just trying to just kind of keep a lid on it and keep going. So when I came across the principles, which is like almost 10 years ago now, and my pain, see, it may have gone away overnight. I don't know because I wasn't looking. You know? Like I can't, looking back, I remember it was there and then it wasn't, but I didn't because I wasn't seeking for it to go away. I wasn't like really registering it.
Mm.
But my back pain and my neck pain went away pretty quickly. And then the IBS kind of went away. My allergies took longer. I don't know why, but my allergies hung around for a few more years. Um, and then And I had one of the big first insights I had into this was when I was writing my painless book, and I was reading a lot of mind-body research, reading pain management books and research papers, and I realized I'd kind of gone down a rabbit hole of trying to understand medical terminology. Right? Because I'm not medically trained. I had a career in Hollywood, so what do I know about, glucocorticoids and, the sympathetic nervous system? And I'm trying to learn this stuff. And I suddenly had this insight and I thought, hold on a minute. All my pain and physical stuff went away without me knowing any of this.
Wow.
I didn't know any of it. I mean, I knew about the fight or flight response because I'd been a trauma counselor, but I didn't know the technical, stuff about nervous systems and digestive systems and how it all works together. I mean, I still don't. I'm totally self-taught, But and then I started realizing that it has nothing to do with information. Like you mentioned, it's been a series of insights, and some of those have been pretty big and loud, and some of them being very subtle. And like you said, it's a journey, and sometimes it can feel like I know sometimes I feel like other people are having big insights and having big shifts, and they're getting this, and then I know if I start comparing myself to other people, I usually don't come off very well. But I was just thinking about my most recent experience with it is I'm just getting over a bad cold. I had bronchitis and possibly pneumonia last week. And I remember I was coughing a lot and I was, almost choking, that kind of coughing when you can't stop and you feel like your lungs are going to be on the floor in a minute. And I thought, I need to make an appointment and go to the doctor. Because last time I had this, it was pneumonia about 6 years ago. And as soon as I made the appointment was the next day. I didn't have to think about it anymore.
Mm.
It's like, I mean, I probably did have a couple of thoughts, but having worked with a lot of people with anxiety, especially health anxiety, I've got clients I know who would have even though they have an appointment the next day, would not have been able to let go of it. I know there was certainly a time when I would have, gone round and round and round in my head about it. What if it means, what it means that, to the point where I might have thought myself into the emergency room in the middle of the night, right?
Mhm.
And it's such a blessing to be able to trust that our bodies know what they're doing. Even like right now, I can feel I had some antibiotics, it's been fighting an infection, and I'm getting better now, and just like trusting my body was going to take care of it, like whether it's, Sheila's body knows what to do right now to heal her, her broken wrist. It might be painful and uncomfortable, but it's amazing the wisdom in the system. And then over the last few years, I've been seeing that wisdom as a system in our mental health as well. So for me, the if I get too much up in my head, or I start thinking it, my back will start to get a little bit of, a little bit of a twinge, or, my stomach might get a little bit upset. But now I feel like I've learned the language of my body.
Mm.
I know what that means now. It's not that when I describe myself as being pain-free, it's not that I never, ever have any pain. That would be weird. Human beings, we all have, get colds, or we, can break a wrist, or, these things can happen. But I've learned now that pain is always a signal, right? It's always telling us something, whether it's, go to the emergency room because you've got a fracture, or maybe I'm up in my head a little bit too much, and so my back or my neck is getting tight and sore, and I've learned I can like come back to the moment, and then it kind of resets itself. And I don't have to have a big flare up like I used to, and then be on the
Mm.
floor on my back for a few days. So
I love those words, Hannah, the language of your body, because I think it's easy to hear your story and to not hear what you just said about um, your body communicating with you. I've had, I had that. I heard that when I first listened to you. Oh, I had this, you know, very radical healing, you know, and I didn't hear the little messages of, well, I'm still human and my body still communicates with me. So, and and for me, it's like when a symptom, when I attach a symptom, I have a symptom and I attach it to a diagnosis, I hook it together and I feel the hook.
mm,
Versus now it's like a symptom means, oh, for me, it usually means, slow down, quiet down, something. And if there's more, I think it means that for all of us, right? And if there's more, there'll be more revealed.
yeah.
Um, and along those lines, the idea of um, health anxiety, I don't know who was the first person to put those two words together, but I invite us to stop putting them together. Like, I don't know. I get so when people tell me about use those words, I get so anxious about it. Like, why do we need to put them together? You know? And we do. People put them together. And I'm wondering, like, is there something else that we can do when we're talking about health and anxiety? Is there some other way of looking at it? What do you think?
Um, the way I see it is whether the focus of their anxiety is on health or anything else, that that's just content. It-
Yes.
Because in my experience with people with health anxiety, the focus is always on the fixing and changing of the health. The searching to, like, whether it's Googling at 3 o'clock in the morning and people scaring themselves with
Right.
kinds of
Dr. Google.
diagnosing themselves, or they're remortgaging their house to do the latest, treatment, or, stuff that they've been told or they've read that is going to fix it. And it's funny, right now I have several clients with a diagnosis of OCD. and I say that deliberately, they have a diagnosis of OCD. I wouldn't say they have OCD, they have a diagnosis of OCD. And as I'm talking to them, each person has a very specific area where their obsessiveness is showing up. One person it was mental health, one person it was technology, another person it's a food issue. And they're relatively okay in other areas, but this one particular area for each of them is very, very obsessive. I was thinking, what makes that different to health anxiety? It's just the person with health anxiety has gotten very focused on that topic. Or PTSD is a focus on the past or the trauma. So if you look at any diagnosis, it's just a kind of a focus that the person, for whatever reason, has kind of started like honed in on. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the diagnosis book, is because of Sid Banks's quote, there need only be one generic mental illness, a misunderstanding of the role of thought. Now, I think for you and me, that misunderstanding shows up physically. But for some people, it shows up in, I don't know, bankruptcies or divorces or other, decisions that didn't turn out well. So why for you and me it shows up as physical stuff, I don't know. And why some people migraines and other people foot pain or other people, stomach issues. But because asking why is another rabbit hole I can go down.
Right.
So what I've learned now is whatever myself or anybody else shows up with as a focus for that anxiety, understanding anxiety and how it works and how it's not me, it's a series of insecure thoughts I'm listening to. That to me is the way out of it. And then when that insight becomes, integrated, then my body doesn't need to scream at me anymore, or I don't need to make, foolish decisions anymore, whatever, was the behavior was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. And so I guess that's like I want to then just go back to just the anxiety and leave the health off of it, which also reminds me that I'll speak for myself. I got so used to, like, I remember being so ramped up all the time. And then the first time I had a little bit of peace, it felt like a lot of peace, right? And I was like, oh, I found peace. Here it is. And 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 then it was, oh, there's more. Oh, there's more. And now I love knowing that there's infinite levels of peace and quiet and how expansive it can be, and how habituated we get to our level of stress and tension, anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Dominic. That makes sense about health anxiety. Some might have financial anxiety or relationship anxiety. The content is not the point. What's useful is realizing that the anxiety, the feeling, is revealing something. It doesn't matter so much what the subject is. And that's why if you're in conversation with me, I want to drop the word health with the anxiety. And like it might be the doorway in, it might be the doorway in, and then we can leave it at the door, because for me, it just seems to activate the anxiety when I put health next to it. So
Yeah. Good.
are you ready to see if there's any sharings or comments or questions? Or
I love questions, so if
me
people want
too.
to ask
Yeah.
questions, I can talk all night. Set me off.
So if you want to raise your hand, at the bottom of the screen, you've got a reaction button with the heart, and that's where you can open up and raise your. There's actually something that says raise hand, so you can do it that way, or you can unmute yourself and shout out because nobody's got their hand up yet. You can wave at me for us.
Yeah. And I want to say, if you can private message any one of Claire or Sheila or Hannah or myself, and you private message us, we will read it without your name, and then you can anonymously ask the question, because I want there to be just total comfort. The body and mind are not separate, so separating mental and physical makes no sense. I once a month I have a group called Healthy Hour, BYOB, bring your own body, mind, soul as one word, because yeah, it makes no sense to separate it. And yet in the human condition, we're really good at doing that.
I do think that would be something to talk about actually, to expand more on that there is no separation, because
Mm,
the society we're in today, obviously, it's treated very separately with the medical system. But let's hear what Gail's got to say first.
yeah.
I suppose I'm intrigued by because I think I still haven't got my message,
Mm.
you know, and I suppose I'm curious about the resistance I put up to listening to my particular condition, you might say. And I'm when I hear you, Ellen, say about slowing down, and um, paying attention, not in a what's going on in their kind of mind, which is something I've certainly done, but I can feel in me there's that turning away from looking at what is behind this, what's the message behind here. So I don't know if there's anything you or Hannah can say to that at all, but
The message isn't the answer. Like
message
it's so isn't
isn't.
the I mean, it's like it's part of such a for me it's such a subtle way of the seeking of keeping it activated. Like if I just got my message, I won't have my symptoms, or I'll feel better, or I'll move better. And
Mm,
along that way, like when I was slowing down to get somewhere, it was rarely effective or sustainably effective. But when I'm slowing down because I'm connected to mind, which is saying slow down, that connection with mind is so fulfilling in the moment that nothing, then what happens after that doesn't matter.
mm.
Does that make sense? Like, what are you hearing, Gal, in that?
Well, I'm hearing that again. It's that in order to thing is not
Mm.
appropriate. So if I'm
Well,
thinking, that when I get the message, I'll understand and it'll all change. That's an in order to approach to it. And I do hear what you're saying about the connection is the important thing, and that I feel is something that I kind of my heart desires and my mind resists, my personal mind resists in some way. I'm always putting the stuff of life um, ahead of my own personal, what I could do to serve myself, whether that's quiet time or some gentle exercises, which I've been very bad at since Christmas. And I know it makes a difference when I do them. It is helpful. But it, it, it's, yeah, yeah. And when I heard you talking about the level of stress and anxiety that you'd been carrying, that somewhere had an echo within me of I override all that. I'm very good at kind of coping and just getting on with life, keep going. And it's a bit like turning the tank around, isn't it? It takes a while for that process to happen. Or maybe not in three principles. Perhaps I'm
well,
saying,
no, not in or out of the principles. I mean, it takes what it takes,
yeah.
and it turns and it goes back. It goes back to what's familiar.
Well, yes, exactly. Yes. And what's familiar is the habit of, using my mind to get through and not listening to that deeper level that knows much, much more. I don't do a load of stuff about what all this is about. And I don't say I've got this. I definitely say that's the label I was given. And I just sort of feel but I'm not really giving myself the space. I think that's the thing. And that partly then overrides the stress of the pushing through. So yeah, the penny will drop. I'm sure it will. You know, it's kind of like I know it here, but it hasn't landed heavily enough at that deeper level for me to go, oh, like a bit like you were saying.
Well, what do you know here? What do you know here, Gail?
The thinking, and I suppose my sense of it is a lot of it is subconscious or unconscious in some way that's running me. But what I'm exploring more now is, or what I'm trying to explore now more, is the feeling. What am I feeling in the moment? And when I'm feeling pressure, can I give myself permission to stop and slow down? That's harder, but I am registering feelings much, much more of that. To me is moving away from, you know, the content of thinking, more about the impact of it. And is this, I was on a call with Mavis Khan, and she said something that really spoke to me about, you might get on a train of thought, and that train of thought will take you to a particular depot, and it will always take you to that depot. You have the choice to get off before it arrives there. And that really, really spoke to me somewhere. So it's like registering, when I'm on that train, I know where that's going to end up. Can I make a choice to step off at an earlier stop? And that's about registering the feeling. I think that's much more where I'm interested in exploring now, you know, if that makes sense. So yes, I don't know if that's answered your question, Ellen, or not.
Yeah. Chana, what do you think? What do you want to add?
Yeah. Hi, Gail. It's nice to see you. I just want to say, Gail won at ViVA. She won the prize of joining my membership for a month, and it's been so great having her there and getting to know her. So it's so nice to see you. And something you said, Ellen, about slowing down in order to get somewhere. I think that really is such an important insight to have, that there's nowhere to get to. You know, this idea that if I understand it, or if I get it, or like, then I'm going to, like, because I went through that for decades, thinking my well-being was like somewhere over there. And if I just meditate more, or if I am a better person, or if I do it right, then I'm going to get, you know, in touch with my well-being. And innocently, like, thinking it was something that I had to achieve or get to, and then I would get it. And you just reminded me of something that happened when I was working with a client with long COVID. And, you know, one of his major symptoms was that he, you know, fatigue, and he couldn't do anything or get anywhere. In fact, he'd been stuck in the house for 2 years and had barely, you know, gotten out, you know, maybe just for a medical appointment. That was about it. It was pretty bad. He couldn't even play in the garden with his kid. And we kind of, in one of our discussions, we're talking about, we came up with a phrase, inner speed and outer speed. Like, his outer speed, he'd slowed down, or he'd been made to slow down by the fatigue and the illness. But when I was talking to him, I started realizing he may have been physically slow, right? But he's got his phone in one hand, he's watching Netflix, he's, you know, talking to his partner. It's, you know, it's like we could be going 100 miles an hour inside our heads, even though we're physically, you know, restricted or lying down. And so there's an inner speed and an outer speed. And so it can look like we're resting, but we could still be going, you know, 100 miles an hour. So that inner speed, if that is still going pretty fast, and it can show up in many different ways, like, you know, talk about anxiety, but even trying to work it out. And I can tell you from my own experience, sometimes, like say if my back starts hurting, I know it's because I've been up in my head. And then other times I might get, you know, something, or I might be talking to someone, and you can't see a connection. But I wasn't thinking anything, or I'm pretty peaceful, or there's nothing going on in my life, and just my neck really hurts, or my skin is itchy, or whatever the physical thing is. And I've realized now is that I don't need to know what the connection is, right? Sometimes it's obvious, right? And other times it's not. And I've realized that the answer is always that I'm not present, whatever you could put the connection to. So the answer is always being more present, coming back to this moment and being more present. And what I found is if I just take that as is always the answer, be more present, then later it becomes obvious what it was. Maybe I was being jealous. Maybe I had some hurt feelings. And sometimes I'd never know what it is. And that's okay too. Because I feel better now. So I didn't need to know. Working it out, I found, is actually just more thinking. And one of the things I've seen is I actually need less thinking, not better thinking. Better thinking about my symptoms, better thinking about my situation isn't necessarily going to bring me peace. Less thinking and losing interest in my symptoms is probably gonna, I think it's when I found I lost interest in a lot of my symptoms. I find it boring now. So it's like, that has been the path to freedom much more, I think, than working it out. Yeah.
Thank you. It's all very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, nice to see you, Gail.
Lovely. So Andrea's got, is it Andrea? Andrea has her hand up.
Hi, yes, thank you. It's Andrea, yes. Thank you for this evening. I work with parents of anxious children. So I offer an early intervention, sort of nipping things in the bud. And I use a couple of analogies in my sessions that I wondered if I could sort of share with you and just get your sort of take on it, because I'd like to make sure that, if there's anything I can add, I'd like to be able to add it or tweak it a little bit. So would that be okay?
Sure.
Thank you. So the first one is, I sort of always say to like the parents or the children, young people that I'm working with, is that we talk about thoughts being passengers on a bus, and that we often think that our anxious thought is in the driving seat. And I always sort of reassure them that anxiety, our anxious thoughts and feelings, are not ever in the driving seat. Sort of our higher self is always in the driving seat. The real you is always in the driving seat. And it's a matter of just sort of communicating with the anxious thought and feeling to sort of say, just reassure it that, we're okay, we're safe in the present moment, and we know where we're going, and we actually do know where anxious thoughts and feelings want to take us. We know that route, we know where that path takes or that road takes us, and we don't want to go there anymore. So it's about just making sure that we realise that we are actually the drivers of our own buses, and we can make a choice of where we want to go. That's the first one. And then the second one is one that works, I find, really well with young children and young people, is the analogy of having a dog on an extension lead. And so these are your anxious thoughts and feelings that are all over the place on this extension lead. And what we're trying to do is to notice them and always sort of bring them back to heel. And when we bring them back to heel, we're basically bringing back ourselves back to the present moment, rather than skipping around all over the place in the past, going into the future, getting tangled up and in a right old mess all over the show, where we just recognize it and we say, no, let's come back. We're in the present moment here. Come back to heel. So it's a little bit like training a puppy. So I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
Do you really want to know?
I was going to say the same thing.
Do you
Go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah, I would like to know, because I'm learning. I'm here to learn. So
okay. I mean, two things came up for me when I was listening. Was in the first example, I and you can tell me if I didn't understand it correctly, but something I often hear when I'm talking to clients is they'll talk about how they talk to their anxiety or they talk to, their fear. And I always want to say to them, who are you talking to? And they go, well, I'm talking to myself. I go, well, why would you do that? And they go, well, that's what we do, right? I talk to myself. And I go, yeah, but who are you talking to? Right? So I'm being facetious here, obviously. But my point is, and I'm going to do a little demonstration because I used to make puppets for Hollywood, so I'm going to use my puppets now, right? So when people talk about, I'm talking to that part of myself that's in fear, a part of myself that doesn't get it. So I don't believe there are parts, but I'll go with it for a moment. So let's say there's part of me that doesn't get it. And that part of me is like, I'm fat and I'm ugly, I'm weak, I'm stupid, I don't get it. And no, you're not, you're beautiful, you're strong, you can do this, right? What always fascinates me is why do we identify with this one, but not that one, right? Because if this part of me, if there is a part, is trying to convince this one that they're weak, that they're strong, they're beautiful, they're successful. Well, why don't I just listen, get rid of that one and just listen to this one? But what if they aren't actually parts? They're just thoughts moving through. So, and another way to say that is when kids are really little, it's probably younger than what you work with, but say, I don't know, 1-year-old, 2-year-olds, kids that are just learning to speak, they get very excited about language and they'll say, ball, cat, daddy, they label things, right? But as an adult or even an adolescent, it's a cat, it's a ball, it's daddy. You don't have to label it. So why would I label a fear and make friends with it? Because I kind of if I'm honest, I really know that I don't feel comfortable. Does it need a label? So that was my first take on the first one. And the second one about the training, to me, that would be a doing, puppy training, because one of the things I saw that, because I had a lot of tools and techniques in my toolkit, as a coach before the principles, and I was really good at thought hygiene. I was excellent at thought hygiene. I could teach you how to keep your thoughts really positive and clean and nice because negative thoughts can take us, into some dark places. At least that's how I understood it. So what I realize now, if thought is always moving, the nature of thought is to move. Any kind of tool or technique is like dragging the train back into the station to work out how to make it leave. Well, it's already left. So I would kind of point my clients in that direction of understanding the movement of thought. The nature of thought is to always move on. And so there's nothing to train, because to try and train it, it's already gone. And that's why we talk about there's nothing to do. And I think sometimes that can be misunderstood. It's like, I have a very active life. Thank God I'm busy doing lots of things. I do plenty, but I don't have to do anything with my thinking, because its nature is that it takes care of itself, if I understand that. And that's what we're doing as coaches, I think, is helping people understand how it works rather than what to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. It's just, yeah, I really appreciate your take on it. I think with the sort of children and parents that I'm working with, they have the repetition of the thought that is just there, sort of playing on repeat. There's one little girl who's constantly having tummy aches, worried about going to school, worried about being away from her mum, and she's been worrying all weekend about that. It's manifested in Monday morning, her not being able to go into school, her mum's kept her off school, and it's just becoming this cycle. So how would I explain to them that these thoughts are just passing through when I've got a mum who's really, she's desperately trying to help her daughter, and this daughter's she's only 7, and she's just in this cycle of worrying thought. What would you suggest for that?
Well, I think she's doing the same thing that her daughter's doing, you know?
Yeah, I have an analogy for the repetition thing, but Ellen, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, go ahead with your analogy and then I'll share.
Okay. So, I mean, this is more for adults, but you could probably adapt it for a child. Although I'm of the opinion that if the mother was less stressed, that would
Yeah.
be as beneficial for the child as anything you could explain to the
Yeah,
child.
this is why I love working with parents.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So my because I have a lot, I work with a lot of people with mental health issues, and they always talk about repetitive thoughts, intrusive thoughts, maladaptive thoughts. It doesn't. I don't care what labels you put on it. It's a thought that's going through your mind. So the analogy I use is the TV show Friends, or it could be any TV show. It doesn't matter. You could pick a TV show the kid has seen, and especially with kids because they like to watch things over and over again, right? So I use Friends just because most people know what it is. I'm by no means a Friends addict or anything. It's just a good example that people will know what it is. So Friends was first shown on TV in America on a Thursday night in like 30 years ago. I was on NBC on a Thursday night, and I remember it because that's when I lived in America. It was a really good night for TV. That it was Frasier and Friends and Seinfeld and ER, right? Great night to spend in for TV. The first episode of Friends, they're sitting in the coffee shop, and Ross says, "I want to be married again." And then Rachel runs in her wedding dress, right? Everybody laughs, ha 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 ha, right? And then Chandler says, "I want $1 million," and nothing happens, right? Everybody laughs, ha ha. Now, that episode has been shown again and again and again and again, right? So the first time I saw it was on TV live. The second time, let's say I saw it would have been a repeat on Fox earlier in the evening. And then the next time I saw it could have been on VHS, remember those big chunky VHS tapes. The next time I saw it, it could have been on DVD. The next time it could have been on Netflix, streaming, YouTube, you could watch it anytime, night or day, anywhere in the world now. So over the 30 years, that episode has not been re-recorded. They're in their 60s now, right? Those actors. It's the same episode that's kind of shown up again and again and again. Now, if you watched it on a continual repeat, it would look like it got stuck. But it's actually a fresh new viewing each time. So the reason I use that as an analogy is because the content may be the same. But to go back to the analogy, the technology's changed, I've changed, my location has changed. It's just the content has repeated, and that's what makes it look like it's stuck and feels like it's stuck. But the good news in that is that each time that I view it, it's fresh and new. The content can be fresh and new. So I could see it as, could change it to Seinfeld, I could change it to, the news, I can change it to sports. If you want to, with a kid, play with that analogy, I might still be watching it on YouTube each time it comes up, but the content can change. And if the content can change, then I can have a fresh new thought. And maybe that thought is going to then take me to a better feeling. And it's not the situation. And I've worked with kids also that get stomach aches on Sunday night, or even grown-ups, because they've got to do something in the morning that they're scared about. And it's the body's reacting to the thinking that they're living in the future, not in the present. So I don't know if that analogy, maybe you could adapt it for kids. That'd be helpful.
It's a great analogy. Yeah. Andrea, you're reminding me, I'm reminded of all the therapy I had trying to fix my kids. And I know if my therapist had said, this is not a problem with your kids, this is a reflection of your anxiety, I absolutely would not have heard it. So I want to say that. When the first thing you said was, that they're communicating with their anxiety, and, we just know that whatever we communicate with gets activated, right? So I like to explore with people like what they're doing and having them see that it's not working, and have them explore like what might work for them, and what do they think their child is really seeking. Every parent knows. And how they might shift that, and, trusting their own innate wisdom and their own well-being. And I love the kids' books that are out now for, I love them I love the kids' books, but I mostly love reading them to parents, because then the parent gets it, because it's so simple. So the Pranskys have two books out, um, Happiness something. And Linda Pransky has two books out for kids, and there's so many other. And I just saw someone else, I think, in Dominic's community, who just posted something about a new book that he's writing about a tree. So, I love that you're working with parents and supporting them with kids. And I remember hearing a story years ago of a school teacher who told a mother that her kindergartner was not ready to go to first grade. And the mother was devastated. And that weekend, she ended up in a 3P retreat. And she began seeing the well-being of her child. She didn't even know that she had switched, focusing instead of on the challenges of the child to just the well-being of the child. And a month later, there's still a couple months before the end of the school year, the teacher said to the parent, "I don't know what has happened in the last month, but your child's now ready for first grade." That story is very old and has stayed with me because of the impact. So wishing you all the best to all that you serve. And I just want to address, before we go to Dominic, I just want to address Jessica's question about watching screens. My daughter-in-law, so I have 5 granddaughters, but the 3-year-old, loves her 20-minute screen time a day. And my daughter-in-law noticed that her behavior after watching Curious George was just really ramped up. And she started exploring that. And she saw that, like, the scenes change really fast. And so she started researching what kids shows, like, are slower, calmer. And it's amazing. It's amazing, the difference. So I wanted to add that for everyone. So Dominic, and then I have a private message to share too.
Hey, hi. Good to see you both. And Sheila, you too. Thanks for hosting and offering these. I just had this insight, hearing Hannah talk about Friends and the repeat. Because it was when you talked about how it's just the same thing, and it's the same thing, and then it comes again, and it's on YouTube or it's on a DVD or whatever, and it's repeated. And it was when you said, because it's not like it changes. It's like the same thought, the same thinking, and it repeats. And then I had this, it took me to something, which I realized, wow, of course it doesn't change, but I'm not the same.
Right.
But I'm not the same. And so it can't be the same. It affected me when it showed up the Thursday that the thing premiered.
Mhm.
But 20 years later, it repeats, but I'm not the same. So there's something freeing or empowering about that. And it actually made me think about how irrelevant the thing is. And it has to do with myself. Years ago, when Pulp Fiction came out as a movie, my wife and I go to see it. I just got off on the wrong foot, I think, in watching it. I don't know. I was expecting a comedy. I don't know what was going on. It was it it jarred me like from the start, because there's a scene in the start and somebody gets shot like the I was just not in sync with what this movie was like, because I thought I'm this going to be a funny movie. Going to see this movie. It was really disturbing. Like, I remember that night. I'm like, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about this thing. It was just very disturbing. So this is, I don't know, 30 some odd years ago. Okay, now don't judge me as a parent, but years later, don't judge this. Some way, somehow, my daughter, who's young, probably not even a teen yet, don't ask me how, but she somehow got on to, came across Pulp Fiction. She loved it. It was in the house like on a loop. I cannot tell you how many times she watched that movie. I was so uncomfortable and so upset that this thing had happened. How did I let it happen? How did I even miss this? I'm not paying attention, like something. And as I look at this now, I'm like, well, there's nothing about that movie. It's like what I made it mean. And then what she made it mean, she laughed. She thought this thing was hilarious. She thought the movie was really cool. So it doesn't matter what the thought is. There's no power in any thought at all. Even if it is on repeat, who cares? That you don't need to do anything about that. So that was just something I noticed when.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I think that very last thing you just said is so important, because often I'm talking to people and they think if they get this, then the repeat will stop. That they're never going to get that thought again. And I say, I still have a funky thought sometimes. I can still get a repetitive thought. I can still even have ruminate. But now I know how it works, and that I'm doing it. It can't hurt me. It can't affect me unless I think it does. And there's a quote, I forget if it's Plato or Socrates, one of those old Greek guys. He said, a man can only step in the same river once.
Yeah.
Right? So you could go to the say the bank of the Jordan River, the Thames, the Hudson, and on your birthday, for the whole of your life, it's the same riverbank, but the waters move, the garbage has moved, the buildings have changed, so it's the fact that it's repeating really isn't the issue. It's whether we jump in and engage with it. And just when you're talking about Pulp Fiction, I just want to tell you, I used to work in Hollywood, so I worked on a movie with John Travolta. And I told him that when Grease came out, my mother banned me from seeing it because she'd read in the local paper that a girl gets pregnant in the movie, so I wasn't allowed to see it. But of course, I went to see it anyway. So I told John that. I thought that was hilarious. So, yeah, I would have run away too. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
I want to just quickly address this private message that came in, because I think it's a great question that is appropriate for many of us. It was certainly my journey. How do you stop seeking and searching and trying to find the answers to reduce symptoms when nothing has ever offered relief? Do you give up on trying? Well, part of the answer is in your question, like nothing offered gives relief. And I remember I couldn't stop seeking or searching, but all of a sudden my attention was just somewhere else. And I just recently heard attention is our spiritual currency. Our attention is our spiritual currency, and it's so easy to have so much attention on our symptoms. It's so compelling. It makes so much sense until we get relief from being here in our life, in the world, in the room. Bill Pettit's first wife said, you're either, in your thoughts or in the room, or you're either in your symptoms or you're in your life.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And in fact, it was when I stopped trying to fix it and I stopped, that's when I got better. Yeah.
And remembering that, and this is to someone else's question, like remembering that symptoms, the source of healing, divine mind, God, universal intelligence, is the source of healing, and that even the deepest insight doesn't always relieve us of all of our symptoms. That's really, really help. It like takes the pressure off of me that it's on me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So sometimes we've had many insights and we still struggle with symptoms. And what if we can just be there's something like lightness about whatever we want to be different that's not. Someone else had their hand up. Do we have time to stay on, or do you want to wrap up?
Well, there's somebody's put their hand down. I do think
Oh,
it's time to wrap up. We did say an hour and we've just
yeah.
gone over. So,
Mm.
yeah, I want to say thank you to Hannah and Ellen and for all your questions and for your participation, because that's what makes it really rich, makes it a very, very rich session in terms of what's shared and there's never a silly question. A question asked or something shared is always for somebody else. So really appreciate your sharing. This recording will go out on our YouTube channel, so it'll be out publicly tomorrow probably, or the next day at the latest. So you'll be able to find it there and point other people there as well if you want to share this session with anybody. We'd appreciate that as well. I'm also just putting into I think I've just done that. We have our early bird tickets on sale now for ViVA 2026, if anybody's interested in having a look there. Oh, Claire's done that. Brilliant. I was going to do it. Brilliant. Yeah, just in sync.
We're just already just like,
Well done, Claire. I was a bit slow on the mark there. And also, actually, Hannah and Ellen, would you like to share with people where they can find you? Just your favourite place that you like people to contact you before we end?
Yeah. Ellen, you want to go first?
Go ahead, go on.
Yeah, thank you, Sheila. So I have a website with my name, hannahstudley.com. You can find me there and communicate with me, through that. You can find me on Facebook. Like I mentioned, I have a membership group, which is a monthly. We have like 3 live sessions a week. And this week I've got Grace Kelly is coming to speak on Thursday. That's tomorrow. And then Mara Gleason is going to come on Monday to come to our book club. So if you're looking for a community, it's a great place to hang out. And yeah, so and then all my books are on Amazon, so you can find them there. So thank you everybody.
My favorite place is in person, but if you're not in Grand Junction, Colorado, you can probably best email me at ellen@healinghousecalls.com or find me on Facebook or my not updated website. And join me for a similar conversation once a month at Healthy Hour. It's posted on Facebook and sometimes Instagram, but I know that like the algorithms to get information on Facebook is insane. So I have an email list just for that group. And I haven't scheduled February yet, so join me. This has been so lovely.
Totally.
Yeah, Hannah, we got to hang out more together.
And the other thing to mention, because you two, I forgot to mention at the beginning, is that you two ran an in-person in Brisbane ViVA session together, and that will be released sometime in the near future when we have
catch that.
I want to see.
Liv has edited it for us and puts it out on YouTube. So yeah, that will be available too, which I'm sure you're looking forward to seeing.
Yes,
as well,
I am.
Me too, because I wasn't in the room, so look forward to that. Okay, wonderful. Thank you again. We will be holding another one of these in 2 months' time in March. We do know who's speaking, who's leading that one, don't we, Claire?
We do. It's Jack.
You want to reveal?
It is Jack Pransky and Marina Galan together.
Hey. And we think the topic's on relationships. So if you're interested in that topic, we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Oh, 2 weeks' time. No, we won't. We'll see you in 2 months' time. All right. Take care, everybody. Lovely
Thank
to
you
see
so
you.
much, everyone.
Bye
Lots of
now.
love, lots of healing.
Bye.
Bye.